Hey guys, what is up? We are doing another history through video games today. We are still in War Thunder, working through a few of the nations. Today we are going to be on to the American side of the game. Specifically, going to be talking about the B-25. So the B-25 is one of my favorite bombers from this era simply because it was just outstanding. It was the reason the Doolittle raids could work ahead the way that they were. It was many, many different variants of the bomber came out. It was just a twin engine, but it still could pack a punch. This plane, they produced nearly 10,000 of these things. There were different variations of it. They had a reconnaissance version of it. They had a trainer version of it. They turned one into a patrol bomber for the Marine Corps, the PBJ. I don't have that unlocked yet, but I'm actually working towards it. So it was introduced in 41. It was made in 1940, and it was introduced in 41. This thing flew for nearly 40 years. I was finally retired for the last time from Indonesia, actually, in 1979. So this thing was flying for probably one of the longest time frames that a bomber or any plane designed during the Second World War really saw service. There's going to be a few that are actually still flying, obviously for show reasons, and there's going to be a few different airframes that are still actually used for like firebombing. The Catalina is the one that always comes to my mind. That it was designed prior to World War II, and it is still flying, still doing very well for what it was designed to do. But the Mitchell, it was named for Major General for U.S. Billy Mitchell. If you have ever heard of the Mitchell name, probably thinking about the B-25. So this is just a bomber that has kind of carried his name, carried his legacy. This thing was armed to the teeth, not as much as a flying fortress, but for a small bomber, I mean, you had guns facing everywhere on this thing. Really nothing on the bottom though. So that's where the safest place to attack it really was from enemy fighters. They would try to come up from the bottom, because if you're coming from the top, you got this guy up here on that turret. He's going to see you. He's going to try to stop you. That's the point of those gunners. So the B-25 was a twin engine, so it had those two engines up front there. The nice thing about twin engines is if you lose one, that second one can try to get you home still. Not always going to do it, but it'll at least give you enough control that you might be able to ditch it in the water or try to do it crash landing kind of thing. But that way it's not like when you're in a fighter and you've only got one engine and all of a sudden you lose one engine, you got no more engines. So a lot of the times the bombers needed them not just for that security, but they also needed them to get off the ground, just because they were packing a lot with them. There's a lot of weight that these bombers were designed to carry. So kind of going into, oh, we got a guy behind us following us. Give me a second. I want to make sure I can actually talk about this plane instead of just crashing and looking at a loading screen. But usually the fighters here are a little persistent, especially when they see bombers. And I'm guilty of that too. If I'm ever hopping into a fighter on this, I will try to figure out where my closest bomber is and go straight for him like a moth to a candle. Okay, got a second bombing run in though, so we can see if we can head back this way. Hello, Lumi. Okay. Oh, she has turned into a little bit of an armrest now. So I'll let those guys do some work while I'm... there we go. Okay, so the development for the B-25 started up in March of 39. So this was well before the United States was involved in the Second World War. It was before even the invasion of Poland, so there really was no Second World War at this point. But they wanted to get a medium bomber, so not just a light one that would be like a dive bomber for carrier operations, but they wanted a medium bomber that would be able to do some work and carry 2,400 pounds over 1,200 miles at a speed of 300 miles an hour. So anytime these bombers were designed, they had a spec kind of, payload for distance at speed, and they had to design something that matched up with those specifications. So they kind of had a bid system going on there. North American was the company that ended up winning the B-25 contract, and that's what they ended up developing was the B-25. So it continued their development in the early 40s, so 40 and 41, came up with the B-25A and B-25B. Those variants were just, hey, we're going to put a bigger engine on it, we're going to extend fuselage. There's going to be some small differences within those variations, the A and B variations, that cause them to say, this one's the A and this one's the B. It's still something that goes on today in aircraft manufacturing. You see it in commercial airliners, you see it in military aircraft as well, that there are different variations of, we're going to put different payload capacity on it. We're going to put different, configuration of seats in an airliner. We're going to put different engines on it. It's going to be bigger fuel tanks. Whatever it is, that's what those are. So, the operational history for the B-25, most famously the Doolittle raid, was when they put some B-25s on an aircraft carrier, kind of bust them all out into the Pacific Ocean, and they reached out and they touched Tokyo. Shortly after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, it was the kind of American retaliation to that tragedy and that sneak attack that the Japanese had launched on American soil. So the B-25 made it possible for America to strike back, and to kind of rally around this secret attack. So newspapers all of a sudden started saying, hey, there's a possibility that we can reach out and touch them the same way that they reached out and struck us. So the B-25 made that possible. They did not actually land back onto the carrier. What they ended up doing was they were trying to get over to China and land the planes in Chinese territory, since China was fighting against Japan as well. Some of the B-25s didn't make it. And going down with this one now too. So I'll see if I can get it pulled up here. No, I don't have it. But there's a great exhibit on the Doolittle raids if you are ever in the Omaha area of Omaha, Nebraska. There's a Strategic Air and Space Museum there. They cover a little bit of the Doolittle raids. They've got a cutaway section of one of the B-25s, and then they've got a full B-25 sitting in the museum there. They've got there's kind of like a chalice thing that the surviving Doolittle raiders would all get together every single year up until the last few here have passed away in recent years. But they would all get together and they would kind of just have a celebration that they all made it through this. Well, they've got the mementos, and there was a cup that the names are all on. They've got that in Omaha. It's a pretty cool sight to see if you were wanting to explore a little bit more B-25 history. The other thing with the B-25 is there are still some flying maintained by different commemorative air forces in the United States. I've had the opportunity to see a few. I'll throw in some pictures here of those. Last time I saw one was in Duluth last summer at an air show up there. The thing still flies beautifully. It was a gorgeous plane to see, a great chance to see some history in flight. They know when they've got these old planes that people are going to want to get up close and see them. They do allow people to go into this plane as well. It's a great thing to see whenever you're at these air shows and see some warbirds. Sometimes you're not allowed to get up close to the warbirds. They know with the bombers they can actually fit multiple people in them. You can stand in the bomb bays and and see the space and get a good perspective for how small this thing was compared to modern planes. This was a small plane. They still packed a bunch of people inside of it, and they did some work with the B-25s. So that is my short overview with the B-25s. I'm going to continue looking at other planes that fascinate me, that should fascinate people out there as well. If you guys have any suggestions of other planes you would like me to cover either briefly or in depth, let me know. Drop a comment down below. I'm gonna keep working on plugging these videos out. We'll see you guys later.